Hi everyone, welcome to Chalchitra Talks. I'm Vaani, and this week we are going to read letters by Emily Dickinson. Why Emily Dickinson, first of all? So, Emily Dickinson has been a great inspiration for me throughout my life. She probably changed my thoughts and views about how I look at a lot of things. And this week, I thought, why not pick up Letters by Emily Dickinson? So, um, instead of picking up her letters that were addressed to Susan Gilbert, which a lot of people assume was her love interest, I thought we'll also explore a few other letters, like a few letters that she addressed to somebody called Master. And so I'll just share my screen with you, but before that, please confirm if you can hear me and if you can listen to me properly and if you can see me. I'll just share the links of the live on a few WhatsApp groups before I just proceed. So bear with me. Emily Dickinson was born in 1830, and she has always been Emily Dickinson was born in 1830 and she was known for her rebellious attitude. So even when she was in her, let's say, missionary school, she was always known for her rebellious thoughts. And so I'll just share my screen with all of you. And let's see. Just let me know if you can see my screen. No. So you should be able to see. You should be able to see a homepage with Emily Dickinson and something that should be written about her. So Emily Dickinson was an American poet, as you can see here. So she died at a very young age when she was just 40 years old. And most of her life, the works that she published were published anonymously. So a lot of people did not know about her until after her death. And that too because her sister discovered her writings. And that's when she got them published. And thereafter, people came to know of Emily Dickinson. Yep. So, as you can see here, Dickinson was an American poet, and these are her, I think, these are the books. But Because I Could Not Stop for Death is one of her most famous poems, I think. We had it when I was in class 10 or 9, and it just talks of her experience with death. And she has personified death into this gentleman who has come to see her. But because she has no time, she cannot pay attention to him. And therefore, she takes out her time and she kind of takes break from her life and she pays attention to death because he's being such a gentleman. So I'll just share the writing with you as well. This is the poem, Because I Could Not Stop for Death. Guys, can you see this screen? Because I could not stop for death. Hi, Dheeraj. Hi, Shiv. Just let me know if you've heard of Emily Dickinson as well. I mean, if you have, we can probably talk more about her. And maybe you can let me know of some facts that are not so well known about her. So this is that poem I was talking about, Because I Could Not Stop for Death. And because Emily Dickinson is very well known for using M dash, M dash is this little hyphen that you see here. इसका logic ये होता है, there's like M dash, N dash, then there's dash. So dash is your normal hyphen. I hope it's hyphen. N dash का logic ये होता है कि जब आप N लिखते हो, which is 2 lines and then a sloped line between the 2 vertical lines. तो उसका जो width होता है, that's your N dash. And M dash की width is the M key width is your M dash. So Emily Dickinson used a lot of M dashes, and jab I read about Emily Dickinson, I would almost always use M dash in whatever I wrote. So this was the first poem that influenced me, and it's just not I mean, I would request you to not just look at her talking about death or whatever, but rather look at it from a perspective where she's appreciating somebody to be such a gentleman that she had to put aside her work, etc., and just pay attention to him. And so I'll just read it out for you quickly. And if it gets a little boring, you can let me know in the comments. So this is because I could not stop for death. So now this 479 is the number of the poem she's written. For example, like she used to number most of her works, if I'm not wrong, instead of giving them a title. And so this is the 479 thing. So it just says, because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. I mean, the thing about Emily Dickinson was that she would never write about things. I mean, we discuss it a lot on the channel, and it's usually like the curtains were blue and what the teacher says, etc., etc. But with Emily Dickinson, you just know that the curtains were blue. There's nothing more you can read into it. And I feel that is not a lot of people and not a lot of poets do that, or maybe I mean, our teachers have led us to believe otherwise. So this is one poem that has really struck with me. Another thing that is like worth noting about Emily Dickinson is the fact that she was another like noteworthy thing is that when she was alive, unki sirf like, I don't know, a dozen poems were published, and not a lot of people would pay attention because the poems were published anonymously. But unki death ke baad, unki sister discovered her letters and her poetry, and they got published. And that is when people started to know her. And she died like of Bridge, if I'm not wrong, she died of Bright's disease. I'm not sure what it is, but it is certainly something related to kidneys. And she died of the Bright's disease, and that's when people came to know of her. And she's also known for like the fierce originality that she had. And so even when she went, so there's a movie, Cynthia Nixon. You might remember her from you might remember her from Sex in the City or Sex and the City, something like that. And you might remember her from that movie. And she plays the character of Emily Dickinson. And that's when, whatever. So it's a boring movie all in all. But if you're someone who's just interested in Emily Dickinson and how her life was, it's a very slow movie. But if you're interested in learning more about Emily Dickinson, her relationships with other people around her, her nephew, or how she died, her siblings, her love interests, etc., you should definitely like watch it movie, perhaps play it at a faster speed, but you will come to know a lot about her. Yeah, this is that movie. So it's called A Quiet Passion, and yeah. So Cynthia Nixon is playing her in this movie, and if you are free enough someday and you just want to study more about Emily Dickinson, you should definitely pick it up. So there's another thing that's very well known about Emily Dickinson, that she never married. And because she never married, um, despite the fact that she never married, she's still written a lot of love poems. And therefore, a lot of people who wrote her biography and everything else, uh, they were interested in realizing that where they were interested in figuring out who this person is, जिसके बारे में उन्होंने love poems and everything. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous, but जितनी भी poems हैं, love poems, etc., लिखी. And of course, I have a favorite there as well. It's called The Heart Asks Pleasure First. So I have a book by her, but I'll get to that later. So this is like, she was famous for writing sonnets and like small verses. So I'm not certain because I don't have like a lot of information about how you write poetry, the meter, etc. But if you notice, most of her poems are like really short. So this is just a sonnet, and she writes, "The heart asks pleasure first, and then excuse from pain, and then those little anodynes that did in suffering, and then to go to sleep, and then, if it should be, the will of its inquisitor, the liberty to die." So I don't know if you guys understood it, but I mean, I'll explain it anyhow. But she says that your heart asks for pleasure first. I mean, पहले ये enjoy करना चाहता है, and then इसको बस, and then it will ask you an excuse to not feel the pain. And then धीरे धीरे करके, like, because the pain increases, there are so many, your insides will start to will deteriorate, and maybe कुछ time के बाद you won't feel a lot. But then after it asks पहले pleasure मांग ले, and then फिर ये चाहता है कि pain भी ना हो, and then it just wants to go to sleep, and then उसके बाद भी it just wants to die after all the suffering and everything, which is a little sad if you think about it. I mean, most of her works are a little depressing, but not so much. So I have this book, which is the collected poems of Emily Dickinson. Guys, can you see this screen? The collected poems of Emily Dickinson. So it's all her works, and they have been divided in, basically her poems have been divided into 5 parts, which deal with life, nature, love, time and eternity, and so on. So there is another poem that she's written, which I absolutely love, because I really like Emily Dickinson because of how, obviously, she used M dashes. And the thing about her writing is कि आपको 2 lines के बाद पता चल जाएगा कि this is Emily Dickinson because of how she writes. And so there's this, when you reach the part 3, which is love in this book, you come across this poem which says, "It's all I have to bring today, this and my heart beside, this and my heart, and all the fields and all the meadows wide. Be sure you count, should I forget, someone the sun could tell, this and my heart and all the bees which in the clover dwell." So बहुत time तक like biographers were confused who this person is that she addressed her poetry to, especially the love poems. And some people discovered that it might be Susan Gilbert, जो later उनकी sister-in-law भी थी, which is a little messed up. But I'll just share this another article with you. It's on Brain Pickings, our favorite go-to website for reference. And I just figured I'll share this letter with you. So it will also, this page where there's also a little theory, etc. And good for us, I have this book as well. So I'll share like a few more excerpts with you if you guys are interested. So this is Emily Dickinson's electric love letters to Susan Gilbert. "Come with me this morning to the church within our hearts, where the bells are always ringing, and the preacher, whose name is love, shall intercede for us. if you think about it, like people in old era used to obviously used flowery language for writing letters, etc. But they were so refined that I've come to believe that even if it was just a normal person writing a letter and not somebody like जो आपका authentic writer होगा, they would still be much better than what we write today. Uh, so yeah, 4 months before her 20th birthday, Emily Dickinson met the person who became her first love and remained the greatest, an orphaned mathematician in training by the name of Susan Gilbert, 9 days her junior. Throughout the poet's life, Susan would be her muse, her mentor, her primary reader and editor, her fiercest lifelong attachment, her only woman in the world. Okay, now this is a little conflicting because I came to know of this other woman as well, and her name is Catherine Scott Turner Anthony. I mean, I could, Catherine Scott, let's just say that. And she was a mutual friend of Susan Gilbert and Emily Dickinson. And throughout her life, she has confused, their friendships have confused the friendship of Emily Dickinson and Susan Gilbert, friendship of Emily Dickinson and Catherine Scott have confused a lot of biographers and literary people with the confusion that whether their friendship was just friendship or was it perhaps more than that, a romantic relationship as well. I'll just, Shiv, I haven't seen Sometimes I Think About Dying. Please let me know more about it. And I mean, yeah. Much like unrequited love, one maybe doesn't get out of. The initial joy and then step-by-step dismantling of expectations is what she felt. That's deep, Jatin. Thank you so much for the insight. But yeah. So I'll just jump to the letter quickly. And around this time, there's also another letter, but I'll just go back to it later. So this is something that Emily Dickinson has written to Susan. And she writes, "Will you be kind to me, Susie? I am naughty and cross. This morning and nobody loves me here. Nor would you love me if you should see me frown and hear how loud the door bangs whenever I go through. And yet it isn't anger. I don't believe it is. For when nobody sees, I brush away big tears with the corner of my apron. And then go, working on bitter tears, Susie. So hot that they burn my cheeks and almost scorch my eyeballs. But you have wept much, and you know they are less of anger than sorrow. And I do love to run fast and hide away from them all, here in dear Susie's bosom. I know is love and rest, and I never would go away did not the big world call me and beat me for not working. Your precious letter, Susie, it sits here now and smiles so kindly at me and gives me such sweet thoughts of dear writer. When you come home, darling, I shan't have your letters, shall I? But I shall have yourself, which is more and better that I can think of. Even think. I sit here with my little whip cracking the time away till not an hour is left of it. Then you are here, and joy is here, joy now and forevermore." So this is a letter she wrote to Susan during the time when Susan was posted elsewhere and Emily was heartbroken. I can't find, yeah. So Emily was devastated at the separation, but tried to keep a buoyant heart. I fancy you very often descending to the schoolroom with a plump binomial theorem struggling in your hand, which you must dissect and exhibit to your uncomprehending ones, she teased in a letter. Susan was science personified, capitalized, and she would haunt Dickinson's poems for decades to come as science. So throughout her poetry, Emily Dickinson has covered a lot of themes, which are themes like death, time and immortality, nature, and even metaphysics. So, but in one of the letters, there are like the most famous letters of hers are with Susan Gilbert, and during the past like lives also, we've had people who commented about the letters. But there's like this other section of letters as well, which were discovered only after her death. And they are addressed to someone called Master, which is eerie if you like अगर आप उसे बस ऊपर से देखेंगे तो it's very eerie. But there's this particular master letters which Emily Dickinson wrote to somebody, and there's no proof that whether they were ever published, whether she ever posted them, or whether they ever got through. So I'll just share those with you. And there are like, I think 3 to 4 letters. And yep, this is the dark mystery of Emily Dickinson's master letters. So, So one of the enduring mysteries of American literature is a series of these 3 letters drafted by Emily Dickinson to someone she called Master. Sankalp, hi. He's commented like, weren't we supposed to have a worldly conversation first to increase watching and then bait people as discussed in the last live? I'm like really, I mean, I would love to do that, but I don't know what worldly conversation we can have right now. I mean, I would love your suggestions on the same. But yeah, I mean, the dark mystery of Emily Dickinson's letters is something like we can also discuss about in a worldly way, maybe. But yeah, I mean, the master letters were like 3 different letters that were 3 to 4 different letters that she addressed to somebody named Master. And the funny thing is, not the funny thing, but she never posted them. There's no proof that she ever posted them. And a lot of people have just assumed who these people could be. And some people say it was maybe perhaps Susan Gilbert, or perhaps, and people like that. So, so this is an article by Nicholas Rombos, who probably teaches these master's letters, who takes a class in these master's letters somewhere. And he's written this article, and he writes, Sankalp, even I suck at conversations. I miss Weber at these times, but yeah. So there is no evidence that that the letters written between 1858 and 1862. So that just paid us 40 rupees. Thank you so much for loving these live sessions, Siddharth. Do you know about Emily Dickinson? Please let us know. And yeah, so there's no evidence that the letters written between 1858 and 1862. Can you guys see the screen, or shall I like try zooming in? I'll just zoom in anyway, and just let me know if it's better, if it reads better. Okay, I'll just zoom out. So there is no evidence that the letters written between 1858 and 1868 and discovered shortly after Dickinson's death in 1886 were ever sent, although they may have been drafts of versions that were posted. No one knows to whom they were intended. Perhaps the Reverend Charles Wadsworth. I tried Googling him, but like there's not much information on who he was, except for the fact that Emily Dickinson and Charles Wadsworth did speak to each other. Samuel Bowles, the editor of a newspaper in Springfield, and a family friend or a professor named William Smith Clark. Or perhaps they are not to a person at all, but to God or the devil. So when I was reading this article, as soon as I read this line, the light just went off. And I don't know why I panicked for a few minutes. For nearly 20 years, I've taught Dickinson and the master letters in my early American literature course, always hoping to come closer to the source of the mystery. Instead, just the opposite has happened. The mystery has deepened. The more I study them, the more we hash them out in class, the longer the shadows grow and deepen over the meaning. So when I read articles like this, I really want to attend a class like this. But like we have to do what we can do the best, and this is like probably the best chance I've got to study her. So this is the opening passage and some lines from the near from near the end of the second master letter, probably from around 1861 or 1862. So, I mean, when I was reading it, it was a little difficult for me to follow. So, I फिर से explain कर देती हूँ, just in case we're on the same page. Emily Dickinson wrote a couple of letters that were addressed to somebody named Master. And aaj tak bhi, like till today, there's no logical convincing as to kiske liye ye letters addressed the. So people say they could have been to like her acquaintances or friends, and there are a lot of names that have come up. But so we're just looking at it, what those letters were. And people say maybe they were just addressed to God or the devil, but I mean, I don't know. So this letter was written in pencil. I've indicated Dickinson's crossed out lines with a strike through and her inserted words in brackets. So this is it. Oh, did I offend it? Did not want me to tell the truth, Daisy. Daisy offended. So this Daisy here is, I think she's addressing herself, but in third person. Who bends a smaller to his, it's meeker every day. Who only asks a task who's something to do for love of it, some little way she cannot guess to make that master glad. Now, if you notice, there are so many M dashes here. And Emily Dickinson was known for M dashes. Like that was her thing, M dash. A love so big it scares me, rushing among her small heart, pushing aside the blood and leaving her faint and white in the gust's arm. This was one of my favorite lines when I was reading it. That a love so big it scares her, rushing among her small heart, pushing aside the blood and leaving her all faint and white in the gust's arm. Strains when his boat is filling, oh how the dying tug, till the angel comes. Master, open your life wide and take in me in forever. I will never be tired, I will never be noisy when you want to be still. I will be glad as though your best little girl. Nobody else will see me but you, but that is enough. I shall not want any more, and all that heaven will prove, disappoint me, will be, because it's not so dear. So Maria Popova ki figuring me, there's another theory, but I will get to that later. I think there are just like two more parts to it. So this is the explanation that our very dear Nicholas Rhombus has given to us for this. The obvious readings of the letters to an actual person makes sense because this makes sense to us, but not necessarily to Dickinson or the people of her time. The letters conjure something something wonderful or terrible. Master. That word, which in 1861 had all sorts of meanings attached to it, masters and servants, masters and slaves, God the master and master the devil. In 1694, a little more than a year after the Salem witch trials had ended, a new case emerged involving a girl named Margaret Rule. Robert Califf, the Baptist cloth merchant from Boston, who was critical of Cotton Mather and other clergy who had participated in the Salem events, visited the girl at her house and was present when Cotton Mather and his friend and his father increased visited the house to question Margaret, and where, among things, a master was discussed. So there's a lot of speculation that maybe she was just talking about like a master who was perhaps the devil or something related to like spiritual science. Jibin PK, hi, I'm so glad to know that these live sessions are helpful. So we are today talking about Emily Dickinson, and she was an American poet. And I hope you will like her works after this session as well. So there's this, in the third letter, addressed to the master, Dickinson wrote, I heard of a thing called redemption, which rested men and women. You remember I asked you for it. You gave me something else, I forgot the redemption. And was tired, no more. I'll just do one thing. I'll share the theory of Maria Popova with all of you. So, I mean, this is that book, Figuring. And here she talks about these letters as well. So, I mean, I wish I could have shared these papers with you, but I don't know how to share my screen right now, share the view of the book with you right now. Um, so I'll just get into what she says here about these master letters. So, first of all, the major reason why these master letters have confused a lot of people is one, because we do not know who she addressed those letters to. And because Emily Dickinson had a lot of layers, and history suggests humans are very much intrigued by people who are very layered. Um, Emily Dickinson has been a really revered poetess because she has a lot of layers. And one of the many reasons why master letters are so well known is because nobody has been able to figure out who they're addressed to, because these letters also come in layers. Um, Around the onset of her self-elected seclusion, Dickinson began composing three letters that would become the most transfixing focal point of her mystery, known as the master letters. Um, Now, the object of these letters is something जो हमेशा से लोगों को confuse करता है. With did she write them for somebody she loved or to be loved, या फिर only for recognition, or perhaps only because for her artistic self-actualization. In the second master letter, however, in the second master letter, Dickinson assumes that the third person, and she calls herself Daisy time and again, and writes of a love so big that it scares her, rushing among her small heart, pushing aside the blood and leaving her faint and white in the gust's arm. In the third master letter, she implores, "What would you do with me if I came in white? Have you the little chest to put the alive in? I want to see you more, sir, than all I wish for in this world, and the wish altered a little will be my only one." But here's another thing. A lot of people have assumed that these letters were addressed to some lover or somebody she admired, etc., etc. But here is a theory that Maria Popova has given, and I think this makes the most sense, to be honest. And she says that, like there was this woman called Margaret Fuller who wrote a lot of letters to Beethoven, but like Beethoven was dead long time ago. And she published a book in which there were like these letters written addressed to Beethoven. And that must have inspired Dickinson, because she was living at that time and she most definitely had read it. I mean, must have read the book. So there's an example that she gives that at the end of his life, Walt Whitman would recollect having been afflicted with a common case of Emerson on the brain in his youth. I read his writings reverently and addressed him in print as master, and for a thought or so thought of him as such. So Whitman K. Hero, which was Emerson, he wrote letters to him and addressed him as master. And she says perhaps Dickinson also addressed such letters to somebody who she admired and not some person like her lovers, etc., etc. Saptarshi has written that one thing I've noticed is that for some people, when they turn their passion into profession, eventually they get tired of it. Has it ever happened to you? Have you ever gotten tired of reading? Um, that's a hard question because uh, I obviously get tired of reading, like not always, but like if I have to take like regular breaks from reading. Like I can't just like finish a book and then jump on to next. I need to take a break, probably watch an episode or listen to music or whatever for a day or two, and then I'm back at it. But then there are so many other things to keep me busy, so I think that's not a problem. Uh, Obviously, if you have a deadline to meet and some goals to achieve, you are not able to enjoy the book or the writing as much as you'd otherwise want to. But overall, yeah, I mean, if there's a deadline, obviously you will not enjoy anything. But having said that, you must also respect the time, I believe, because there is, I mean, I've always maintained that there is so much art to explore, and you must respect time in that case, but it should not compromise with your ability to understand or appreciate that art. Um, yes, Heather, like, obviously, gender doesn't matter. There's no gender in pain. And everyone feels the pain and emotions differently. So there's no cause of gender in most cases. Uh, but yes, coming back to the letters. So we've established that a lot of people have established that Master was probably, in Emily Dickinson's letters, Master was probably somebody she loved or was friends with and respected. But there's a theory that Maria Popova has given in her book Figuring. And she says that perhaps it was just like maybe Walt Whitman, who wrote letters to this person he admired and addressed to him as Master. And similarly for Margaret Fuller, who wrote letters to Beethoven, and around that time when Dickinson was alive, her book was published, and she must have definitely read it. Dickinson was not yet 30 and endowed with an uncommon eagerness of mind when she began composing her master letters. Decades later, in the final years of her life, she would write to Susan. Susan was her sister in law. I mean, people say that Susan was her love interest, and she later became her sister in law. So, uh, yeah. So, she wrote this to Susan in her later years. With the exception of Shakespeare, you have told me of more knowledge than anyone living. To say that sincerely is strange phrase. So it is a strange sentence, like actually, um, because she says that Emily Dickinson says कि Shakespeare के अलावा uh, with the exception of Shakespeare, you have told me of more knowledge than anyone living. So she praised Susan and said, like, after Shakespeare, you're the one who's taught me the most in life, which is such a strange comment, but like at the same time, so beautiful. But if you consider about this, if you think about this, Shakespeare was to Emily Dickinson what Beethoven was to Margaret Fuller. So it could be possible that her letters that were addressed to a certain master could be letters written to Shakespeare, just like Margaret Fuller wrote letters addressed to Beethoven, who was no longer alive. For example, now here Maria Popova has also drawn a few parallels, and she says, um, Fuller says, Margaret Fuller, to Beethoven, Master, oh, if thou wouldst take me wholly to thyself. And Dickinson has written a similar line, and she says, Master, open your life wide and take me in forever, which is almost the literal meaning. So this is so Fuller's letters to Beethoven was included in her posthumously published memoir, which soon became a bestseller across New England. Emily Dickinson, 21 at the time, almost certainly read it. She was well aware and admiring of Fuller. Permeating her correspondence with Susan was a private lexicon derived in part from Shakespeare. Uh, so, like in general, what we've established here is that it could also possibly be Shakespeare, somebody who's dead, in Dickinson's writings. Because, I mean, would you write letter to a dead person? Like, if you're watching this live, and if you would write a letter to a dead person, like, just like perhaps, probably Emily Dickinson read. Like, I would love to know that. I would love to know your comments on the same. Um, Saptarshi has written, I go through the cycle, like let's say I read 5 books, then I get tired, then I watch 5 movies, get tired, watch anime, do theater, and then come back again to reading. Uh, I I I don't do that actually. I mean, I do that as well, but like 5 books is a lot. I do that after like 1.5 book. Uh, I do that almost after every book. Uh, Character analysis video. I'm not certain now. I'll have to read so much for that. Is there any? Yeah, I mean, Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson looked up to Shakespeare. Margaret Fuller looked up to Beethoven and she wrote letters about it, which inspired Emily Dickinson. I look up to a couple of people. I've looked up to Emily Dickinson all my life, and uh, I was uh, the movie A Quiet Passion, which is a very sad movie about Emily Dickinson because I think it's very slow. It is a beautiful movie nonetheless. If you have the time, please watch it. I saw it as well, but I मैंने fast forward करके देखी, which is very usual in my case because I fast forward a lot of stuff. Um, but yeah, I've looked up to Emily Dickinson all my life. I think it was the M dashes that really inspired me because there was just something that was something that inspired me to have my own flair in writing, uh, to have something like M dash. So I have given up M dash, but like yeah. And apart from that, I think it will have to be, um, I'm not certain, but perhaps it's a very cliche name, Jane Austen. Uh, wow. Animal Farm, 1984, Brave New World, and We. How did you feel after finishing all these 4 books in like one sitting, Saptashi? Uh, until then, I'll just read another letter. It's to Susan, and I think it'll be the last letter. Uh, it's just something that Emily Dickinson penned to Susan. And she said, "Thank you for loving me, darling. It is enough, dear Susie. I know I shall be satisfied. Dearer you cannot be, for I love you so already that it almost breaks my heart. Perhaps I can love you anew every day of my life, every morning and evening. Oh, if you will let me, how happy shall I be?" Emily Dickinson was like a really, I'm not certain, a really influential poet. I mean, she changed the way a lot of people write poetry. And yeah, I mean, there's a reason why she's still very well known. Hi, Chinmoy, how are you? So yeah, I mean, guys, those were the letters for today. I mean, if you have any questions, please let me know. And I don't know, do you want like can we end this on another poem by Emily Dickinson? Perhaps you can pick out a random page and I can share a poem with all of you from any random page. The last page in this is 325. So anything from 1 to 325 will be good. Oh yes, I was your bull. Uh, Robert Louis Stevenson's letter to Arthur Conan Doyle. I was actually torn between a couple of letters today. One of them was this. The other was Napoleon's letters to his wife Rosalind, which were a little too graphic, and I wasn't certain if I should pick them up alone. And then there was this third letter that Stephen Fry, I hope I'm getting the name right, wrote to his fan. But I don't know if I'll be able to pick that up because I don't know a lot about Stephen Fry. But if you guys have the time, I think you should definitely check out that letter. He wrote this to a fan who is battling depression, and it is a beautiful read. And what other letters would you like to discuss here on this live? Please let me know in the comments. Yep, that's it. So I'll just stay for like 5 more minutes. And if you have any suggestions or like comments, like please let me know. Else I'll just take your leave and then all of us can have a good Monday evening. James Joyce's letter. I'll have to read that to be certain. But yeah, Napoleon was pretty nice as well. I mean, yeah, I'll have to read this. Dear John letters. Oh, we should do that definitely, Weber. Can you read my letter to Modi ji? Yes, Kilef, like please mail it to me at vaanimahesh04@gmail.com and perhaps we can think about picking it up sometime in the future. It's VAANIMAHESH04@gmail.com. And if that is all, like, so I'll just like anyway read any poem because you guys are not commenting any pages, any page numbers. I'll just comment it. I'll just read a poem anyhow and wish you a good night before I leave. So there are 5 different parts: life, nature, love, time and eternity, and the single hound. And I'll pick up one from life, maybe. Or maybe just like see a bookmark, which I can't find now. Just give me a minute. I'm so sorry for making you all wait. Vita's letters to Virginia. We should definitely do that as well. Thank you for the suggestion, Shreya. Also, this is, I just came across this comment that I had made in this book, and I don't know why I've written it, but Emily Dickinson used to dress wholly, like she used to only wear white. And this influenced me so much that half of my wardrobe is still white, which is weird. And her mind, so yeah, that's a fun fact about Emily Dickinson. Sure, Jibin, I can read 2 poems. Rutuja Bapat Kafka. I don't know if oh wow, thank you so much for 100 rupees, Shresht. Means a lot. Thank you so much. So yeah, I mean Kafka, Rutuja. Oh well, yeah. Maybe so I've heard, I don't know if you guys have heard it. I read a post somewhere where it said that Kafka, I don't know if it was Franz Kafka or if I'm confusing him with somebody else, but he wrote letters to a young girl. And yeah, and there's something about her doll as well. I don't know what, but yeah, I think she lost her doll or something, and Kafka wrote her letters about the same, and then rebought the doll for her. And yep. So page 42. Let's see, Sagar. Thank you so much for the help. Page 42. Oh wow, this is a good poem. Mine enemy is growing old. I have at last revenge. The palate of the hate departs, if any would avenge. Let him be quick, the viand flits. It is a faded meat. Anger as soon as fed is dead. It is starving, makes it fat. I didn't get the last line, but yeah. Her M dash is so prominent everywhere. I don't know if you can see this, but her M dash is everywhere. It's like if she's writing 10 lines, there will at least be 5 M dashes. Yeah. Number 561. I measure every grief I meet. I have to look for the page number, dude, and that will take. No, wait, I don't have to. I measure every. I don't think it's here. Is that the title of the poem? I measure every grief I meet, Rishiraj. Because I can't find it in the index. Yep, I cannot. Some poetry that I really like of her is, I think I read it in the beginning as well. It's here. I don't think I have it anymore open, but yeah, it's the heart afraid of. It'll take me some time to figure it out, but I'll just read another. The soul selects her own society, then shuts the door. On her divine majority obtrude no more. Unmoved, she notes the chariots pausing at her low gate. Unmoved, an emperor is kneeling upon her mat. I've known her from an ample nation choose one, then close the valves of her attention like stone. Because I do not exactly know how to decipher this, I have only come to appreciate a few lines, and that's the first one, first 2. That is, the soul selects her own society, then shuts the door. Yeah, I'm really sorry about the page being inverted. I'll just try it again and see if it can work. Can we get more Indian author recommendations? Yes, definitely. So today, this episode came out of book recommendations, Abhi and 1289. And we had Abhinandan Sekri from News Laundry, and he's recommended Indian authors, 7 Indian authors, I think. Yeah, 7 uh, authors. And I think you will really appreciate it. So do check out that episode as well, because it's mostly Indian authors. Oh, because I could not stop for death is like a really lovely poem. And why do you like Because I Could Not Stop for Death, Rishi Raj? So I'll just read out. So this poem that Rishi Raj is talking about, I don't know if you know, but it's one of her most famous works, where she has personified death. And जब हम ये पढ़ रहे थे, I was just, oh, by the way, guys, I had to show you this thing as well. So I discovered this thing on Etsy, which is, can you see my screen? It should be etsy.com. And okay, shit, what have I opened? Yeah. So it has all the merchandise for Emily Dickinson. And I don't know, but like people are so creative. Um, this Hope is the Thing is another poem which is beautiful, just so you know. It says, I had it written somewhere. Uh, I'm always late to a party, but yeah, it's here that, okay, I've got the wrong poem. But yeah, thank you so much, Psychbot. Um, but yeah, so this is like merchandise that I realized of Emily Dickinson. And this is something that I want Emily Dickinson in her own words. Like, so this is like a painting of Emily Dickinson with her poetry. I will try to zoom in, but I don't know if it'll be, yeah, no, it's not working. Yep. What if I zoom in? No, still won't work. But yeah, this is a painting, and yeah. So like people, and even today, like in my suggestions, I don't know why in my ads, I saw an ad which had Emily Dickinson's words written on the handbag, or like what is it called? The the uh, the big bag that women carry around. It's a handbag, but like it's a, I don't remember the name, sorry. So these are all the merchandise. So if you ever want to gift somebody anything, and if you have a lot of money, you can most definitely. Oh, there's a mask as well. I missed it. Pro Poem face mask. Pretty cool, dude. They've started printing these things and poetry even on, even with like quotes on them. But yeah, this is tote bags. I saw so many totes in my recommendation today. But this is pretty cool. So I mean, I've given a, I mean, if some of you are like really artsy people, you can definitely make most of these at home and perhaps retail here for us. So this is that mask. Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in soul. It's weird. Why would somebody walk around with this? But then to each his own. So yeah. Do you think art is subjective or objective? Should it follow some rigorously set rules, or should it be more free flowing? I don't think art should follow any rules per se. I don't support rules when it comes to art. What if M dash was just to express a blink? that means like no name hashtag too. That will mean that would mean that Emily Dickinson blinked a lot, a whole lot after every line, in middle of every line. Also for poetry, this is something that Saptarshi has written. Do you think there should be multiple interpretations or just one absolute interpretation by the poet or some absolute committee of sorts? This is something that's just my opinion. And I think it's okay to have multiple interpretations. And I derive this from this quote, which I read somewhere years ago, and I do not know who wrote it. And it said that art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comforted. So the comfortable. And therefore, you turn to art whenever, I mean, जब भी आपका heartbreak होता है, you write poetry. That's like that was the most basic example I could give. Uh, with your first heartbreak, you become a poet, and definitely not good. I mean, most of the times not good, but you're still a poet, and therefore you turn to art when there is nothing or no hope left. So why limit it or the interpretation to just something that the artist wants it to be? Just find comfort, find your comfort in whatever you turn to in times of grief or enjoyment or like overwhelmingness. So this is something I feel. What do you think, Saptarshi? And okay, Rishiraj says, I love it because it presents death not as an opposite of life, but as an extension of it. It helps you connect these irreconcilable worlds and makes even the act of a simple breath sacred. I would also like to add, I love because I could not stop for death, and I think it will be a little, I don't know, it'll be a little, I am forgetting the word. It'll be a little controversial to go right there, but I also like how she presents death as a gentleman, because until then, so if I read it in class 9, and as I'm assuming I read it in class 9, it was just like an, I just saw death in new light, that there was something, you did not always have to hate death. And I think even in the book Thief by Marcus Zusak, that's one of the many reasons why I love death, is because especially the final note, there's a final note. Okay, I wouldn't like to give you spoilers, but the way Marcus speaks of death or writes about death in the book Thief is something I've really appreciated. And I really like those works where you just appreciate, you instead not appreciate, but instead of running away from death, you learn to see it as something that happens to all of us, and you learn how to deal with it. Is this a sponsored video? I wish it was. I really wish it was by Etsy, but it's not. I mean, thank you, Dipshika, for the 40 rupees. That is equal to 4 Hindi newspapers. So, well, yeah. Yo Bull, it's David Foster Wallace's quote, best use of poetry in a movie. I don't know. Best use of poetry in a movie. There are so many movies that use poetry now. But yeah. Oh, yes, I am. Do not go gentle into that night, into that good night. Yes, Atif, I've read Sapiens. And I think I'll pick it again just to align my thoughts on it again, like properly frame my thoughts on it, because I think I'm still very contradicted about the book. जब भी आपका heart break हो, you write a poetry. So relatable. I wrote the only 2 points of my life when my crush rejected me. They were really bad though. I mean, all of us start with bad poetry. I mean, I'm still writing shitty poetry, but well, you have to be somewhere. You can read Keats' letters to Fanny Burney while he was perishing away due to TB. Sure, Rishira, that's a good suggestion. Perhaps we can look into it the next time. And you can also, like, if you guys have any letters, you can always like share them with me as well on my email ID, which is vaanimage04@gmail.com. And maybe we can pick it up in the next live. Apsara in absolute shock after Vaani. Thank you, Saptarshi. Regional literature books in translation. So Sharon, I'm not really certain I'll be the best person here to recommend regional literature books in translation. However, there are two books that I read recently. One is something that I'm still reading, and it's right here. I'll just get it for you. So one is Sanskar by U.R. Anantamurthy. It is Kannada and it has been translated into English by, I'm not sure, but it's a good book. There is there's another book, When I Hid My Caste by Baburao Bagul, and Jerry Pinto has translated it. And if you go to the book recommendations episodes that we did today, you will also get a few recommendations by Jerry Pinto, of Jerry Pinto. And so the actual, this is a collection of short stories, When I Hid My Caste. Okay, you cannot see. Is it better, guys? Can you like see it now, When I Hid My Caste? Can you like read this one? Okay, yeah, Chadan, definitely we can share poetry and letters in a session, perhaps. Just let me know when you guys want to do this. It'll be so fun. No, Saptarshi, I'm never reading my poetry. I mean, I don't write poetry anymore. Yeah. Always be a poet even in prose. Explain. I'll have to read a little more about that. Have you read Neruda? Yes, Subhashish. I'm confused in your shows. I've read Neruda, but I really think you can only appreciate poetry any literature when you actually, most of the times the translations ruin the essence of the things. So yeah, Sharon, this is When I Hid My Caste. Can you see, can you see the cover now? Like it should be the other way around. It should be legible. So it's by Baburao Bagul, and it's a collection of stories. And the original name is Jiva Me Jat Chorli Hoti. Jiva Me Jat Chorli Hoti. And it revolutionized. I'm sorry, I have a trouble. I'm verbally dyslexic at times. And I do not mean to mock anybody who actually has that problem. Revolutionized not only Dalit, but also all Marathi as well as Indian literature, bringing to it raw energy and a radical realism, a refusal to understate or dress up gritty, brutal reality. So this is something that I would really recommend if you are discovering short stories. But yeah. What about making a playlist of all major novels from regional literature of India and making a list? Please think about it. Certainly, Sharon. And if you go to like, yeah, we could do that. And perhaps like all of you could also help us in making that. Because I've realized like the good thing about the community that we all are a part of is that we are people from like all parts of India. So for example, the other day we had someone who recommended us Bengali books. And there was another person who wrote to me with Kannada books. So like it'll be so good to have all of you recommend a regional book from each part of the country, and it'll be actually super fun to have translations of those and just discuss it with each other, appreciate all languages and literature. What is a popular piece of literature that you think is quite overrated? I will start. Merchant of Venice. Random Jew hating, predictable May plot, too much protagonist worshipping. If you, Saptarshi, did not like Merchant of Venice, and if you realize the underlying problems in it, I would recommend like there's this. So it's a funny. So how I don't know where to start. History Channel. I am not. I could be wrong. There was a certain channel where there was this series, Horrible Histories, and they did an episode dedicated to Shakespeare. You should definitely watch it. And if you cannot watch it, you should definitely. Which I think you'll find the episode anyway. But in case you want to buy a book, you can buy this Horrible Histories Shakespeare version. I am forgetting the actual name, but it's like pretty cool. And you will really appreciate this book. But any popular piece of literature that you think is quite overrated? There are quite a few actually, but I think it's largely what you like in the moment. I will bash the one book I've been bashing from the beginning of time, which is Alchemist. I don't want to make enemies with any other writers at the moment. Uh, your top 5 poems by Dickinson. I mean, the ones that stayed with you the most. So I am forgetting the title of a few, but there is one that it's about her. Of course, there's Because I Could Not Stop for Death, but that's very overrated. Then there is wait, The Heart Asks for Pleasure First, and then Excused from Pain, and then those little something that Dead in Suffering. That's one. And then there is This Is My Letter to the World That Never Wrote to Me, the simple news that nature told with tender majesty. Her message is committed to hands I cannot see, for love of her sweet countrymen, judge tenderly of me. Oh God, this is a biography. This is a dedication I would write if I ever wrote a book. For love of her sweet countrymen, judge tenderly of me. And I think there should be disclaimer before every time I go live. But yeah, and there's another one which is Soul, Wilt Thou Toss Again, by Just Such a Hazard. Hundreds have lost indeed, but tens have won and all. Angels' breathless bellow lingers to record thee. Imps in eager caucus raffle for my soul. I mean, some of the poems don't make sense unless you have to. Okay, this is something like I really love. It's if I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one life the aching, or cool one pain, or help one fainting robin unto his nest again, I shall not live in vain. It's a very simple poem. And she just says, if I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one life the aching, or cool one pain, or help one fainting robin unto his nest again, I shall not live in pain. And I do not know why I really love this poem. And then there's another one, but I'll just read one line because I like that line a lot. A wounded deer leaps highest. So, I mean, yeah, that's one. That's a few. Gibbon, I saw this movie called I'm Thinking of Ending Things, adapted from a novel of some same name by Len Reed. The movie is like mind bending. Have you read that book? Because I haven't read this book, I'm sorry, but I have clicked a screenshot and I think I'll look up the movie, if not the book. Saptarshi says, I know some good books, got to see if they are getting translated into Bengali. One thing I know that Sarat Chandra Chattopadhyay is one of the most translated Bengali author. Oh, that would be lovely. I mean, please share a list of this with me as well. I would love to explore it for myself. Sagar has written, Gulzar told in one seminar that he's collecting and translating poems from different parts of India. Good to know. That's like wonderful. Ashok, I started reading Figuring Mamaria Popova and on second chapter, so have not reached Emily Dickinson back. Even I have not. This is fun thing. Like, so there are a few books that I have, like Maria Popova's Figuring, and then there's School of Life, and a few others, which I look at for reference. And I just don't, because I know if I start from the first, I don't have the time to just pick up and start from the first page and then just go on and finish it. So I pick up sections from time to time, which I know will not be related to the initial section. And that's how I read a few books. And that's only when I want to enjoy them and not be sick of the deadlines I have. Hi, Lokesh, how are you? Sharon, have you read anything by Peter? No, I haven't actually. I've made a list of all the Nobel Prize winners, and I'm really dying to read their Peter's works, but I don't know when that will be possible because I have so much to read right now. Does it ever happen to you guys that you just to-read list keeps on piling up, and the books you buy also like the pile goes on increasing, and the books that you've read is just like what? 2 in comparison to 50 other books. Alchemist was one of those sleeping pillows from Etsy for me, only in book form. Saptarshi. It took me 3 months to finish that book. Uh, and I'm so glad so many of you like share the same opinion, because a lot of people have told me otherwise, and I thought my taste in books suck, because a lot of people I befriended appreciated The Alchemist a lot. Try Strangers No More from Sanjoy Hazarika. It's a glimpse of the lives from Northeast India and good writing too. Yes, I've heard of that book in Ranuj Pathak. If I'm not wrong, I've heard of this book. I mean, I think I saw it on Amazon or somewhere a few days ago. I did not buy it because I did not buy it. I don't know why, but I will look into it. Thank you so much. Rishi Raj, reading authors of the past with a modern moralistic prism is so sickening. Merchant of Venice was written in Elizabethan period where anti-Semitism was raging. Yeah, that's true. I do not know. I'm still forming my perspective on. I'm still figuring out how to read these authors of the past, because I remember reading Peter Pan and being so offended. I threw the book and just, even though the cover was beautiful and everything was perfect with that book, it was a second-hand book, vintage collection. But I still got so angry because it's so sexist. Uh, but yeah, that's why I'm still working on how to pick up some bits in the past that tend to challenge our thought process in the present. Uh, my read list is bigger than my list of regrets. Saptarshi Majumdar. This is going to be my quote of the year. My read list is bigger than my list of regrets. And my list of regrets is bigger than the list of problems with the current Indian administration. I'll just stop there. My read list is bigger than my list of regrets. I finished Milind Kundra's The Unbearable Lightness of Being just yesterday, and it's one of the best philosophical novels. I'm actually, I know of Milind Kundra for like quite a while now. It's been years. And I don't know, for some reason, I haven't been able to go ahead and buy his books and read his works, but thank you so much for the recommendation. I will definitely look into it. I think what's best, I mean, what really drew me to Milan Kundra was the cover of his books. They're like really nice. Don't you read self-help or non-fiction books, Shiv Kumar? Uh, I don't read self-help, and non-fiction. I tend to read quite like some non-fiction, but I don't know if anything is worth recommending. Haraman Garg, how many books do you manage to read in 1 month? I aim at finishing one book a week, but like recently I haven't been able to do that. So usually it's at least 2 to 3 books a month. Although my aim is 4 or 5, but like I settle for 2 to 3. So guys, I think it's getting really late, and just let me know if you have any comments, etc. And I read Curious Incident a few years back. It's quite decent. It's actually lovely. I think there was Vaibhav. I think there was a movie. I'm not certain, but there was a movie made, like an Indian adaptation of the same, but I think it was in Bengali or like some regional language. And it has a girl instead of a guy. Vaibhav is talking about Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night Time, I think, if I'm not wrong. Do you know any good poetry related to city? Everyone is so proud of their regional poetries like Bengali, etc. I live in Chandigarh and now I'm getting envious. Hi, Jatin. Related to city, I do not know. I'm not certain. But yeah, I mean, it's okay. The place where I come from, we don't, like, there's a lot of culture, but like it's losing its charm because people are trying to move to the city life. So yeah, I can relate though. Hi Anubhav, how are you? Oh wow, thank you so much for considering my voice to be distinguished enough for an audiobook. No name #2. Rutuja, have you read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl? Yes, I've read that book. And I mean, I read it like many years ago, so I do not exactly remember what happens, but I really like that book. And like there are a few books that I really absolutely love. And I mean, I just came back from home And I rediscovered a few of those books and I brought them with me. So I'm hoping to share those with you in the recommendations in the future. But yeah, I mean, Man's Search for Meaning is one book that I think everyone should read. It should be almost part of our curriculum, maybe, if I'm not wrong. People can differ, but I really appreciate this book. And if guys, you haven't read this book, please like at least skim through it, maybe. I mean, that'll be a very terrible recommendation, but you should find the time to for this book because it's one of those beautiful books about hope. Uh, it's really nice. Saptarshi, I understand that you have to keep in mind the timeline when you are reading books. Then I see absolutely amazing authors whose writings have aged well, and then I feel disappointed at other authors. I don't think I'm disappointed in any author as such. Every author has a market, and there are people who appreciate their writings. And obviously, I don't appreciate a lot of writings and a lot of authors, which is something that's entirely my fault. But I think every author has somebody who will appreciate them. So yeah, it's okay to be disappointed in people and their writings. Sharon, what's your take on nihilism? If you can say anything about what you have discovered about the subject. That's a whole different topic. And like, I'll get into it some other time, but that's a whole different topic. I'll just avoid it for now. Mentalic Sansar, that's a cool name. I almost read it as Metallica Sansar for some reason. What do you think about Russian literature? Yeah, self-help books are really big. But I think like self-help books do help a few people. I know people who really appreciate self-help books. And I don't know. What do you think about Russian literature? I think it's Russian literature is good. I mean, in what aspect do you want me to comment about Russian literature? I haven't read a lot. I've read like the basics and the most obvious ones. But yeah, if you want to add non-fiction in your list, Indranuj Pathak, considering you're not much into it, you should go for The Uninhabitable Earth by David Wallace Wells. It's an epoch-defining read. Thank you so much, Indranuj. I will definitely consider it. Right now, I don't know why, but I ordered a lot of Robert Greene. If you know him from The Art of Seduction, The 48 Laws of Power, and The Laws of Human Nature. And I don't know if I'll ever read it, but yeah, that's that. Okay, I don't know, guys, it's getting a little late, but if you have any questions, please shoot them. And then perhaps we can all go to sleep in 5 minutes. Saptarshi, I mean, technically Rabindranath Tagore was a city poet or author because his house at Jorasanko is in proper Calcutta city. I recently read quite a lot about Rabindranath Tagore as well. But yeah, I mean, he was technically a city poet. Yep. But if you are from Chandigarh, there should also be Punjabi poetry that you look into, right? There are quite a few Punjabi poets that are very famous, if I'm not wrong. Just let me know what you think about it. Why is Vaibhav in comments? Did you take over the channel? No, Vaibhav just... I've gone rogue, maybe. Sayantan, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing your names, guys. Hi. Raman Gar, do you always finish reading a book once you've started it? No. Most of the times I just give it up. I feel compelled to finish every book I've started, even if I find it boring as an episode. No, it's absolutely okay. I mean, I used to have that fetish as well. That's why it took me 3 months to finish Alchemist. Else I would have been like just done with it and would have gotten away with not finishing it at all. But over the years, I've realized that you shouldn't waste time. There are like so many books to read, so many things to do, and nobody has. I have a quote for that, and I'm trying to search it. But it's okay to not finish books that don't intrigue you anymore, and it's okay to just give up in between everything, because it's okay. There are so many books that you have to finish, and you're just wasting your time on something that you won't register or appreciate in the moment. So it's okay. You can appreciate it some other time when it's the right time. If you like science books, try out Surely You're Joking by me. It's a good book. 1, 2, 3 Infinity. But I actually have it in my wish list. 1, 2, 3 Infinity. Do suggest some other YouTube channel for book lovers. I would definitely try. I mean, the channels that I watch for books and other stuff, I would most definitely recommend them to you, but I would really want to bring them on the channel first, so that, I don't know, there should be a little hint of surprise maybe. Here's a sample of his poetry. I'm nothing, I cannot be anything, I know never be anything. Despite that, I sometimes forget that I'm live and I speak things in my mouth. I'm really sorry. Hi, I'm Tiyajul. And Subhashish has said, if you like science fiction books, please try Dark Matter by Blake Couch. The number of recommendations I get in lives is so much. I mean, just basis the recommendations I get in live sessions would be enough for a year. But well, curious to know your take on audiobook and the difference of its experience from a regular one. Audiobooks are also books. That's one. Do I like them? I don't appreciate them as much as like a normal, like people do. But I think it's a good take, because see, if you are there for saving time, if a book takes you like 2 to 3 days, an audiobook will take you like 6 hours, which saves a lot of time. That means you get to explore a lot of books. That doesn't mean I'm endorsing audiobooks, but I'm just saying you can definitely try audiobooks if you want to, because it saves time. And now the problem with audiobooks is that most of the times narrators are very monotonous. They just speak in one regular pitch, like, I don't know. And however, there are certain books that have been narrated by really interesting people as well. This is an example I give everybody. It's Becoming by Michelle Obama, and Michelle Obama has narrated the book, and it's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. So even though I do not know the content of the book by heart or whatever, the audiobook was really nice, because Michelle Obama it feels like she sat down with you on an audio call and she's just narrating the book to you, which is absolutely lovely. So it's all about finding the right narrator, one, and also the speed at which you listen to the audiobook. That matters a lot. If you have the time, if I have the time, I definitely read. I mostly pick up tangible books. But audiobooks are a good solution as well. I mean, I don't have a problem with them if somebody is into audiobooks. Yes, I don't know why I always read Metallica. Mentalic Sansar. Amrita Preetham, I've heard a lot about her. Amrita Preetham and Pasha Punjabi. Yes, they are. And Shrish Chaudhary. I just read Day Tripper by Gabriel Ba and Fabio Moon, a graphic novel. I've heard about them. I don't know why. Is Gabriel Ba related to the Umbrella Academy in some way? If I'm not wrong, both of them are brothers, right? It, along with Chunking Express, were pieces of art which really helped me a lot during this lockdown. Can you recommend me some? More graphic novels. I haven't read a lot of graphic novels. I'm still discovering them. But yeah, I mean, Gabriel Ba and Fabio Moon, if I'm not wrong, they have more works and they are like fabulous, if I'm not wrong. I just want to confirm if Gabriel Ba and Fabio Moon are related to, Gabriel Ba especially is related to the Umbrella Academy. I haven't seen Umbrella Academy, but I think I've heard of that. Have you read any Somerset Maugham and then? No, I haven't. I'm so sorry. Sahib Tulsi. 1, 2, 3 Infinity explains really tough mathematical and physical concepts in absolutely amazing way. If you would like to explore a little more mathematics, etc., try Simon Singh. He's an amazing writer as well. And he writes a lot about maths and science and codes, etc. Maths mostly. Yep, Umbrella Academy. There's a radio program called Sunday Suspense where they read out good mystery or horror Bengali stories with absolutely amazing background sound effects and voice acting. Saptarshi. Oh yes, I mean I still find there are a few audio shows on the radio. There is like skit narrations and everything, which is like really interesting as well. Although I never got the time to explore them or like just clock their time. But yeah, that's really interesting. I wish I knew Bengali though. Have you read further? I still don't know how to pronounce his name, Shiv. But yeah, I've read him. He's good. Is that what you wanted to know? Saptarshi Majumdar, Radio Mirchi Calcutta, Raman Kolkata, Raman Garg. Have you ever thought about writing a book? Are avid readers good writers too? I've thought about writing a book. Have I written one? No. Have I taken any like measurable steps? No. I don't know. I think the more you read, the better write. I mean, this is what I've heard. If you want to write, read more. But I don't know. In my case, it's certainly not the case. I find your reading taste very eclectic. Wonder how you pick up your next read. Thank you so much, Rick. Yes, Gabriel Ga was the artist behind Umbrella Academy. And I do not know why, but I can't seem to remember why I know the name of these two brothers very well. I think they're brothers. I just can't remember what I know, what book whatever I discovered about them. And now it's like intriguing me. Saptarshi is doing PhD in physics. So if anybody has any doubts, upcoming assignments, etc., you know who the guy is, Saptarshi Majumdar, in the comments. But yeah, I haven't seen the show, Shrish. Is it good, The Umbrella Academy? And I don't think we should be discussing shows. We look for the books. Have you read read Gravity's Rainbow? No, I haven't. Ford. I'm not certain how to pronounce your name, and I'm really sorry about it. I've heard these are very tough to read books. I haven't heard they're tough to read, but I've heard they're very lengthy books. And I have two brothers, but I'm busy with other stuff. Ashok. Persepolis, like I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah, that's a good graphic novel as well. Have you read Withering? No, I haven't, but I've read Subhashish. Ooh. Shatan, what an amazing world it would be if one could read and speak all languages. True. Wow. Currently, I'm reading Gogor and Headlopper. That is really good. I should probably start taking notes of these graphic novels. What did I read while growing up, as in during those preteen and teenage years? I read a lot of classics while growing up. And I read a lot of the adventure series, Hardy Boys. I read Nancy Drew as well, although I can't remember a thing from Nancy Drew. I read a lot of Ron Roy, Jane Austen, Virginia Woolf. Although Virginia Woolf just like went over my head, but I still read it because I wanted to be cool. But yeah, thank you so much, Sayantan, for the 100 rupees. Means a lot. No, I do not know about No Pothavan Shiv, but I'm pretty certain I'll look it up and I'll read more. Thank you so much, Abhinav, for joining us. I mean, I'm glad you find our channel addictive. There was a movement before to make a universal language. This is something that Saptarshi has written. I've forgotten the name of the language, though. Most of the words were taken from Latin as far as I remember. I think there was something like this as well. I mean, but I do not know what it was. But what would your take be on languages if you are watching this live, and if you have a take, that is. Um, but yeah. So, guys, it's getting late and I do not know, but I should probably head back and sleep, because if I don't, I won't be able to wake up in time for the office. But yeah, let me know what your take is on the universal language in the comments, in the chat below, and even in the comments later on, because that's a pretty interesting movement. But the thing that I have against language is that there are certain things that are so good in the native language in which the writer has written them, but when once translated, you don't feel anything. And I think I realized it when I read Pablo Neruda's poetry, because there was so much going on there, but the translation was, I didn't like the translated poetry. Shri Chaudhary, I did English. You've done English now. That's pretty cool, dude. And I couldn't even do classics then. I think the problem with me was I really wanted to be cool. And that's how I started reading classics. Also because they were mostly the books that were in torn old casing and like had lovely fragrance. And I don't know why. I just started reading them because I wanted to be cool. But then eventually it just took away, and then I appreciated classics a lot more. Um, but yeah, I like language diversity makes life interesting, and somewhat it preserves privacy also. This is something Saptarshi has said. Um, but yeah, so okay, so I think that'll be it, and I'll take your leave. So, just in case, I mean, what other letters would you want us to read? So, this week we did Emily Dickinson and the letters that she wrote to Master. So, most of her letters that are famous are the ones that she wrote to. I don't know why I put in the most of her letters that are famous are the ones that she wrote to Susan Gilbert. But we picked up the letters that she wrote to somebody who she addressed as Master. So perhaps we can pick up the Dear John letters in the next live. And usually we go live on, I individually go live on Mondays alone. And we read a lot of letters. And somebody in the comments had commented as well that perhaps we should do a live session discussing each other's writings as well. I mean, I don't write a lot, but if you guys are interested in a session, please let me know. And apart from that, also let me know what other letters would you like to read. And usually like I aim to go live by 9:30ish, so we can meet on Monday next. And we also have another live session on Thursday where we read stories, in case you don't know. And let me know if you have any suggestions for those as well. So I'll see you guys again on Thursday now for the reading session. And thank you so much for just joining in today. Have a good night, and I'll just leave now.